I mean, talking about innovation, it's always a challenge for a publisher to decide if they want to build it or buy it. I mean, talk about being a product manager with your video player. What decisions do you have to make every day to make sure you have a good player and an innovative platform?
So I think one of the first things that I realized when I came in, and this kind of transition was already starting throughout the company, and it really started as a couple years back as mobile was emerging and just the monetization on mobile was still a little shaky. The company and technology, made this really critical decision about how it needs to be able to go and really monetize in this HTML5 first environment for all of our users, even if kind of the industry as a whole wasn't necessarily there yet, or all of the technology providers weren't necessarily there. And then we started kind of creating this player toolbox. And then that toolbox was really sort of effectively transitioned over to the interactive storytelling group, and being able to go and kind of create videos that you can interact with more. And then that kind of carried over to our paid post and native advertising group, as they started creating more sort of compelling stories for advertisers. And so what this kind of player, or really this toolbox, allows us to do, that we've now kind of brought it in-house, and we're continuing to develop this, is just be more flexible and dynamic, because the New York Times is fairly unique, or at least it's not emerging out of standard linear television.
Mm-hmm.
It's we have a lot more free reign in terms of the way that we go and think about what that experience is first and foremost, because it's not first and foremost for TV, it's first and foremost for digital.
Right.
And and users like to interact, and really understanding those growing trends and expectations, especially from some of our younger users or from international audiences. And so being able to go and have these tools and be able to create these compelling experiences is really great. And it also allows us to more easily kind of integrate with third parties. And so, if we want to go and just, really embrace this concept of test and learn and agile development, and knowing that it doesn't always make sense for us to build everything. But there are so many emerging technology companies who are doing really cool things that just aren't the standard yet, and we want to be able to go and innovate alongside them.
So this HTML5 first and toolkit, it's proprietary.
It's proprietary.
And so that gives you the ability to be creative and nimble.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And so, we've already kind of started to see this with a really exciting campaign that we launched last year, going into this year with Google. It's around our 36 Hours column, which is an incredibly popular column.
It's a great franchise.
It's really great.
So you're building on it?
And so we've expanded it to now include video series. It's consistently top performing kind of content item just within the New York Times and just generally throughout the social space, and just has really helped go and bring in more of an audience to the New York Times. But the sponsorship is really unique in that we take a standard vPaid overlay ad for each individual video that we put out, and so we have 36 Hours in Cartagena, and we've created this sort of custom overlay ad unit that uses the Google API and goes and as a moderator, or as the interviewer within the video is talking about a very specific restaurant, you can go and bring up like the Google Maps information for that restaurant and how to get there and how to get from one kind of spot to another, and really kind of creating, in the same vein, the way that we've created these interactive, full page experiences, being able to go and bring that interaction within the video and bring that advertiser, closer to this content, while still kind of respecting the autonomy of the editorial voice in the content as well. Right.
So Google Maps layered on top of the storytelling, and that's a advertising relationship, not just a partnership.
That's an advertising relationship as well as a partnership, but
yeah.
It's a huge advertising campaign.
I mean,
for the United.
How is it for you as a product person to have to think about user experience versus revenue responsibility? How much of that is forefront in your mind? Or are you given the freedom to be creative?
I mean, the user is kind of always the most important, is always like the most important player in sort of how we go and we create products and we create these experiences. But having said that, I don't know that we should think of advertising as something that needs to live siloed. It's really about how can we go and really kind of build in advertising in a really sort of compelling way for the user. When you have sort of the separation between the end user and advertising, that's where you kind of create and get these clunky experiences where you have really great content and then something kind of flashing in the background that's an overlay. And we're a premium brand, and we have premium advertisers, and a user can go and recognize that something's an ad while also being able to go and appreciate it and explore it.
Yeah, your audience is smart. They know the difference, right?
Yeah.
They can tell.
Yes. And we clearly indicate as well, but again, it doesn't need to be in this sort of flashy way. It's about kind of maintaining the integrity of the product as a whole.
Well, so you mentioned Mark Thompson earlier. He comes from the BBC. I mean, how fine a line do you think he needs to walk to respect the foundation upon which the entire institution was built, while needing to completely disrupt and challenge that foundation for growth? I mean, how do you think he is doing against that challenge?
I can't necessarily, and I can't speak on behalf of him, but just kind of in coming in and really like understanding this organization, I think that we're all, like anytime somebody joins the New York Times, and I've been there for a year, and so I've seen this as new people have come in, everyone's very humbled by, the newsroom, the editorial voice, as well as a lot of, various individuals in the marketing and the advertising group as well. And so, luckily there's, your ego is checked at the door at the New York Times. And then also this need for innovation and this desire to go and reach out, doesn't, exclusively live on the business side. It very much is, it's a very sort of real initiative in the newsroom as well. And so, as we see kind of this rise of social and when we think about, what our social strategy is, we talk about, BuzzFeed and Vox, and our strategy isn't necessarily their strategy, but our strategic thinking, is kind of in line with their strategic thinking, and that we have like a very specific voice, and that's what makes us really unique. And so we want to be able to go and be out there where users are getting their news, whether that's Facebook or Twitter, and making sure that editorial voice continues to come through. And that we're going in kind of innovating in line with just the way that our users are kind of changing their habits.
Right. And I mean, what are the metrics for success when you're looking at the BuzzFeeds or the Facebooks, comparing it to your, like, how do you measure your success in a field of upstarts who are trying to be in the news business?
I mean, it's, there are a lot of different sort of measurements. It's always, it's everything from just general quality, which you can really see reflected in terms of, time spent, how much like various content items are shared, other users, just general engagement with the site, whether it's comments or just letters or anything else. And I think that it's it's a little different in terms of the way that users go and interact with our content. But I think our content always it has this ability to go and create really interesting conversation. And that conversation, doesn't like exclusively live on the New York Times anymore within comments, but that conversation and seeing that blow up on Twitter and Facebook and even now on Instagram is really interesting and I think very impactful.
Cool. So that's a lot of places you can play. I mean, any goals you can share with us about 2015, things you want to attack as a product person? Yeah,
I mean, we're definitely looking to really understand and kind of convert mobile more so than we are right now. I think somebody earlier had noted that generally within the video industry we still see 75% desktop, 25% mobile in terms of video consumption. But for the New York Times as a news organization, if you look at news and all of those different kind of content types that exist within news, it's very much 50-50, if not more, mobile.
Okay.
And so understanding that our users are there consuming that content, just being more deliberate about how we can go and kind of convert those, those users who are on our site into video viewers, and being able to go and tap into those kind of mobile-first experiences, whether it's kind of sharing on Instagram or WhatsApp, or even sort of Snapchat, and starting to really explore what that means for the New York Times, even if it's not necessarily our demo. And it's, right now the way that it exists is very much in the UGC space and not in the premium editorial space. being able to really sort of anticipate what that means, because the way that the industry just shifts is just so rapid, and we can't afford to kind of wait for our users. We have to be there when our users arrive.
All right, so the New York Times is going to make us all embrace Snapchat. That'll be our bridge. Okay, thank you so much.